Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast. It's episode 28. We've got myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very special guest in the best state around, New Jersey, Leslie Kleiber. Did I get it right, Les?
You got it right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. This is the best state. We get all 4 seasons, and we're right in the Mecca, right next door.
Well said, man. Well said. While we're on the topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about your background in New Jersey? Is that where you're from, by the way?
No. Okay. So to wrap both your questions up in one. Like Joe said, name is Leslie Kleiber. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Sayreville, New Jersey. Been in Jersey most of my life. I went to Sayreville High School. High school, sport-wise, I swam all 4 years. Before high school, I did soccer, football, basketball. I was pretty much like 2 sports a year kind of kid, always involved in sports, always outside. And went to college at Montclair State University. My intentions were to go to PT school after, but didn't work out for me. I graduated with a bachelor's in biology, but I was still in the physical therapy realm because that was my job outside of college. I was a PT aide at the time. It was called JAG Physical Therapy. Now they're called JAG 1 Physical Therapy. I still work for the company. I'm an outreach marketing representative. So I'm pretty much the guy that talks to the doctors, tries to better relationships, X, Y, and Z. And I'm also a trainer at a local gym called Limitless Fitness. I'm head of the trainer development there. So I'm not only a trainer, not only a HIIT class instructor, but I'm also the onboarder for new trainers coming in. And yeah, I'm pretty much the guy that kind of walks them through how we do classes, how we format our workouts and stuff like that. So those are my pots on the pan. And right now I'm a injured hybrid athlete. I did hurt my left calf. I'm rehabbing right now. I'm taking it slow. Rest is the worst words in the dictionary right now, but I'm taking it easy. But yeah, my future goals, once I get healthy, is to run a sub 25 kilometer race sometime this year. I definitely want to achieve that first goal and then kind of like build up from there, like 10K, half marathon, full marathon, ultra marathon. But yeah, that's me right now.
I love it, Les. Now, I got to say this. So throughout Project Endure's history, throughout the Hard Things Club history, you've been one of the first and one of the most active and engaged members. And every single time we leave a meeting, without fail, someone will message me and say, man, Les is funny, right? I swear I've gotten at least a dozen of those messages. So let me ask you this. Where does your sense of humor come from? And are you aware that you are as funny as you are?
Wow. First of all, to the Hard Things Club, thanks for the compliment. Where does my sense of humor come from? I would say my friend group. You think I'm funny. My friend group, they're hilarious. My family, they're hilarious. Like I just kind of absorb all that sarcasm, all that good humor from them, honestly. Growing up, I got into comedy or like watching stand up like at the start of Kevin Hart's career. To my eyes, Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, those two are like the giants in my eyes. I love their sense of humor. I love their jokes. And I love how when they're telling jokes about them. They don't tell jokes about other people. Well, Dave Chappelle is a little sensitive with LGBTQ community, but Kevin Hart, for the most part, tells jokes about himself, about his family. It's never attacking anyone else. So whenever I tell jokes, or like I don't purposely mean to be funny, it's just that's how it comes out. And yeah, I'm glad that it's easy to ingest, I guess that's a correct way to say it.
Man, I love that. And speaking of Kevin Hart, he's a Philadelphia guy.
Yep.
And one of his quotes actually, I think, applies well to the premise of this podcast. He once said, "Laughter heals all wounds. And that's one thing that everybody shares. No matter what you're going through, it makes you forget about your problems. I think the world should keep laughing." And that's one thing I appreciate about you, Les. And one of the many things is every time we interact, I feel like I leave smiling, feeling a little bit lighter. And so this podcast, obviously, we're going to talk about some deep stuff. Maybe we'll have a few laughs. And I want to just start with the first question, which is, what's the hardest thing that you've ever been through, a circumstance in life that you didn't get to choose?
Okay, so the hardest thing I've ever been through would have to be getting open heart surgery. So that is definitely a story. So it all starts senior year in high school. Going into, like I said, I did swimming, and that was like my big year. Like my races was 200 individual medley, 100 breaststroke, and I did 2 relays. I would cycle through either the medley relay or the freestyle relay. And I was like varsity, like I was putting in great times. So that was supposed to be a really good year for me. Going into the Christmas break, that's our hell week for swimming. Like that's where we practice throughout the break. Morning practice, I believe that practice that day, that was one of the harder days. If you know swimming, that day we did 50/50s on 50. So 50 laps, so 50 seconds swimming there and back 50 times. Yes, there were puke buckets at the end of the lanes. Some people didn't finish. It was a tough one. That was like, everyone knows it. It's happening. And the coach, of course, it's kind of like random. You never know when it's going to happen. And that was the day. That practice happened. Obviously, I was totally gassed after. Got home, went straight to bed, did not eat lunch, did not eat dinner. I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was like, I think it was like 2 a.m. And like, it was like at a time where I was like, do I eat something? Do I stay up? Because I know I have practice tomorrow morning. Like I should just go back to bed. So I didn't eat literally for almost 12 hours, give or take, right? I was rested. Woke up the next morning, 7 o'clock, practice is at 10. So I go in the kitchen, right? And my mom was already in there. She was making her thing. I don't know exactly what she was making, but she was making something. I go walk in the kitchen, and the last thing I remember is I passed out. I hit the floor, lights out, like I was done. I wake up, I'm in the hospital. I have all these stickers on me. I didn't know what that was. I was freaking out. My mom was right next to me. She's like, just calm down, calm down. They're running tests on you. And then she told me the whole story. Like I blacked out, and we just got you to the hospital as soon as possible. So of course she was like, are you okay? What happened? Like, are you sick? Like, did you take drugs? X, Y, and Z. But I told her I was fine. I was confused. And it was EKG. Basically, it monitors my heart rate for a certain amount of time. And the nurse came in. She's looking at the papers. She rips the papers off the machine. She brings it to the doctor in like a very suspect way. Like there's ways you look at paper that's like, oh, you're doing fine. And then there's another way you look at paper like there's something wrong. She looked like there was something wrong. She goes to the doctor. The doctor comes back in, and the doctor's like, hey, Leslie, how you feeling? I was like, I'm very confused. What's going on? And the doctor's like, well, you recorded 3 heart murmurs in the last 20 minutes. And if you don't know what a heart murmur is, our heart rate has a certain rhythm, dun-dun, dun-dun, dun-dun. A heart murmur is basically like a skip in that. So it's like dun-dun, 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 dun. Like it was, the rhythm was kind of choppy. So that's not normal. That's not supposed to happen, especially at that age. Give you a little history of that episode as well. I've never had heart problems, ever. Anything health related for me was asthma and allergies. So allergies, take your Allegra, boom, good for the day. Asthma, take my inhaler, boom, good for the day. So I never had any heart problems. I never had any heart murmurs. I didn't even know what that word meant until that day. So from there, We went to the next couple of days. I told my coach. Coach said, "Okay, let's take it easy. Wait till the doctor gets back to you, and then we go from there." So I was pretty much rested through Hell Week. Then beginning of January comes. I get an MRI scheduled. Go to the MRI. They pretty much take images of my heart. They want to make sure all the valves are nice and whole, and there's nothing wrong with my heart. Maybe it was an episode. Maybe it was just a little something, and we can just move on. It was not a little something. It was not something we can move on from.
Yeah.
So it turns out that I had a rare case called ACA, pretty much means abnormal coronary arteries. So for people that don't know, your coronary arteries are basically like the veins of your heart. They supply blood directly to the heart. There's no valve, there's no tubes. It's just the veins. And they're usually located at the bottom of your heart. Mine were located on the top, underneath the aorta. So the aorta is pretty much the big valve that takes all the blood away from the heart. And the fear was that the doctors were explaining to me, again, at a very young age, the fear was that your aorta, through exercise, through rigorous activity, would crush your coronary arteries. And crushing blood flow to any part of the heart is bad. It would have been 100% death. Like there was no waking up from that. So at the time, like I said, I only had asthma. I only had allergies. I thought it was bullshit. I was like, okay, good joke. Awesome. Thank you. Sorry for wasting your time. I'm going to go. Because mind you, I was totally fine after that. I learned my lesson. Don't skip lunch. Don't skip dinner. Learned my lesson. The doctor says that. Of course, the doctor sends the report to my coach. Coach is like, yeah, you're not swimming. You're not. I'm not going to risk you getting in the pool, something happens, and that's on my watch. So it's not happening. You're done for the season. I'm crushed. Like at that point, I'm the biggest cheerleader of the team. And a couple of weeks goes by. Of course, my cardiologist and my mom were kind of talking to me, like, you want to move forward with this. You want to get some more tests, a second opinion on these scans. You want to do another scan. At the time, I'm a kid going through application process for college. I just got benched for the season for my only sport. I'm going through it, right? Then, I believe February, March time comes around. There was a kid that played basketball for Rawway High School. I don't have the article. I do not know his name, unfortunately. But this kid had the same situation as me. I don't know if it was Hell Week for him, but he had a practice, woke up the next day, passed out, woke up in the hospital, recorded heart murmurs, never had any history of heart murmurs or any heart problems. He chose a different route. He said, I'm still playing. He kept playing. He went through a full week of practice, something like that. He was fine. Coach is like, he's fine. If he says he's fine, he's going to play. He was the center. So in the beginning of the game for basketball, there's two centers meet at the middle of the court and they do a jump ball. So for that kid, he went to the center of the court, went up for the jump ball, and collapsed on the court. He passed away. My mom sent me the article. My cardiologist sent me the article. My mom was like, this is real. This is not BS. This kid had the same mentality as you. And at the time, even though I wasn't swimming, I was playing basketball. I was working out with my friends. Like, this is serious, Leslie. You need to, pay attention to this. And I was like, holy shit. This is like real. At that moment, I was like, okay, I want to go through everything. I want to do this because at that young age, mind you, I was, oh my gosh, I'm not old, but I was young then. But I was senior in high school. I was like 18, 19. Yeah. So like at that point, I knew it wasn't just, it was about me, but it wasn't just about me.
Yeah.
Like that kid died, unfortunately. And that kid might have had dreams. He might have had hopes. He might have had ambition. Like he probably wanted a family, like all this stuff. And like all that stuff was going through my head. I'm like, that's not about me anymore. Like I want to have a family. I want to have kids. I want to run with my kids. I want to do all this stuff. And I don't want to have this over my head because the options were have the surgery, live your life. Don't have the surgery, live your life questioning every moment of your heart racing. You can't have fun without being concerned. You can't play basketball with your friends without being concerned, work out. You can't do anything anaerobic pretty much for the rest of your life. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I was like, before that, like I said, I was always into sports. I was always into fitness, always playing with my friends. That wasn't me. So I had the surgery December 20th, and I got discharged from the hospital Christmas Eve, woke up Christmas Day. I was very underweight. I was very skinny. I was to a point where like you can see my rib cage. It was definitely the toughest recovery of my life. Like right now, I'm recovering from an injury from my calf, but that was definitely the hardest thing I ever had to go through. And thankfully, I had my family, I had my friends to help me through rehab, through keeping a good mental, because like at the time I was very depressed. I thought the surgery was worthless, because in my head I'm like, all right, I had the surgery. Why am I not better? Why am I still feeling so weak? I should be feeling stronger. I should be like, getting back out there. But it took so long. It took months. I had nightmares for so long. I still have nightmares from not the surgery, but basically what happened was, for the surgery, I have, of course, the bandage and the scar, but underneath that, I had a valve tube that was connected to my GI tract. So after the surgery, when I woke up, the nurse explained to me, yes, you have a scar down your chest, and you also have a tube. Do not move the tube. That tube is connected to your inner gut. That pretty much is like the escape valve for all the bowel that was left in your body during surgery. He told me that it's going to be in there for at least a day and a half, and once you're good, we'll take it out. I was like, okay. I didn't pay any mind to it. He also said that every 3 hours that he was going to come in and kind of skim the tube. I didn't know what he meant by that. I kind of like let it go. I woke up from the surgery, like, you stop talking to me. Like, let me let me get up first. So every 3 hours, the nurse, I will never forget the first nurse. The first nurse, his name was Chris. Chris was a very nice guy, but unfortunately, he had to do very mean things to me. So Chris, like he said, every 3 hours had to come and skim the tube. So that means, imagine starting from your stomach, someone like drilling a nail through your back, and like it was the most uncomfortable thing in the world, and it was every 3 hours. So when I woke up from my surgery, it was around 2, and then he had to come skim at 5. He had to come skim at 8, 11 p.m., 2 a.m., 5 a.m. So like I didn't sleep that first day and a half. That was the worst thing that I went through. I would cry. I would tell Chris, like, stop, please. Like, there's nothing there. And he had to do his job. I understood. He had to skim it. And ever since then, I would have nightmares, because there were, especially like throughout the night, you're sleeping. He's coming to do the thing. And that was tough. I don't wish that on my worst enemy. And that was definitely the hardest thing, for sure.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, thank you for sharing all of that. And it's crazy. So I grew up in Westfield, New Jersey, not too far from Rahway. I believe I read that news article. And it's funny, at that point, we had never met. I had no idea who you were. You had no idea who I was. But here we are talking about that event. I thought, wow, that's really sad. For you, you thought, wow, that's really sad. And this is going to change the course of my life now. And, it's really crazy to think that if you took a different course of action, one, your life would be totally different, but two, you might not even be here to talk to us. Yeah. And do you look back at that lesson? Like, are there any positives, silver linings that came out of that whole scenario and your diagnosis and that period of time?
I think from that point on, I knew that every step, every breath after was for my future. It was for my grandkids. It was for my kids. It was for everything I wanted to do. Like, everything I did after that was with intentions. Everything I do today is with intentions. It is a big lesson, especially at a young age, to understand selflessness, to understand true endurance in the fact that you're at a very low point where you feel depressed. I'm not saying I was depressed. I felt depressed. I was having these night terrors. I was at a very unstable point in my life. And to make it out of that, to be where I am today, talking to you, having this conversation, and affecting so many others. Like I said, like I'm a trainer at the Limitless Fitness gym, and one thing that I always make sure when I'm going there, because we have a young athlete program, a lot of kids are like in middle school, freshman, high school. I always make sure like they have like a little token, a little lesson, because they're our future, whether you like it or not. They're going to be writing our laws. They're going to be governing our states. They're going to be making these decisions for us, whether we like it or not. Point blank, period. So sharing that wisdom, being a tool in the community rather than just another Instagram page, rather than another trainer, rather than another person. I want to be that threshold of knowledge to not only the youth, but anyone curious about fighting through battles, going through heart surgery, going through tough times, hardships. That's definitely what I learned.
Yeah. Again, beautiful. I have a quote that I came across today for the first time.
Oh boy, here we go.
I think this fits. So I'm gonna butcher the name, but it's by Mikhail Lermontov. Mikhail Lermontov. If you're listening, I'm sorry. So the quote is this: "Many a calm river begins as a turbulent waterfall, yet none hurtles and foams all the way to the sea." In other words, you think of this big waterfall crashing down to the ground, to the earth, and it's turbulent and it's violent. It could even be dangerous. But eventually that water finds its way to the ocean. And along the way, it loses that turbulence. It loses that foam and it calms down. And it sounds like that period in your life was this like shock, this turbulent, overwhelming, confusing, scary season. And since then it's evened out a little bit. And I think for all of us, life happens a lot like that, right? We're met with some diagnosis or some news or hardship, struggle, adversity, you name it. And it feels really overwhelming at first. Like, how am I ever going to get through this? But in time, it calms down, the foam settles, and we're able to establish this new path for ourselves. And as we're on that path now, we get to choose hard things, which I think is beautiful. And so, Les, my next question for you is, what is the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose? And then why have you chosen to do that thing?
Oh man, that's a good one. First of all, that was a really good quote. I know you're a man of many quotes.
Thanks, man.
And that was a solid one. The hardest thing I've ever had to do on purpose. So this is actually going to be a shock to a lot of people listening. I don't think my family even knows this.
Wow.
So the hardest thing I've ever had to do on purpose was quit soccer. Before swimming in high school, I would say that I was good at soccer. Like, I'm not even playing. Like, you know how like before games, like the coach comes around you like for a little pep talk and they tell you about like certain players to be mindful of? I was that player. Like, number 10, try your best to be in front of him. He's fast. He's good with the ball. He can kick with both legs. Just try your best. All right, kids, let's have fun. 1, 2, 3, break. I was that kid. I had a small friend group in soccer. I had a couple friends. But the reason why I quit, and again, my family doesn't know this, I felt lonely in my house. At the time, my stepdad, my older brother, and my little sister, they were all affiliated with a Pop Warner football team, the Sayreville Leprechauns. My stepdad was an assistant coach, my brother was a player, and my little sister was a cheerleader. So, and soccer, literally, this is the dynamic was my mom would take me to soccer, and my stepdad, my brother, and my sister would go to football. So literally two cars going two different directions, meeting back at home for every day for it felt like 2 years.
Mm.
Mentally, I felt not part of my household. I felt that I was just not alienated, but like I wasn't part of the conversations. I wasn't, I didn't feel okay. I didn't feel okay going two different cars.
Mm.
You know, like I hated being the reason why my mom couldn't see my little sister cheerlead, or I hated that I was the reason why my brother couldn't see me, vice versa. Like I hated that. Um, there was, like I said, I was good. I'm not saying I was going to get like signed by FC Barcelona by 13, but I was good. Um, that was a time where like I was trying out for different travel teams, and one coach was saying one thing, another coach was saying another thing. Like he's definitely going to start. I want him on right wing. He's going to be an important part of the team. Blah blah blah. So like it was like kind of like a battle for two, not a battle, but like it was between two teams. In my head, I was a free agent at the time. So like I had no sworn contract to anybody, or like I wasn't on anyone's team. And at that point, I had enough. I told my mom I don't want to do this anymore. I want to play football. At that time, again, I was good at soccer. Like I could have, like, if I kept going with soccer all this time, I'm telling you, I probably would be on a different path. But I was like just another kid playing football. I wasn't anything special playing football. Like literally, if I would go through like my stats, Pop Warner, I had 2 false starts. I had 4 confirmed tackles. Like Leslie tackled one person. It wasn't like Leslie and another player tackled. So at least 4. I had one forced fumble, which was big. That was a big game. That was against our rival, Morgan Panthers. That was a big deal. But it wasn't anything special. But it wasn't 2 cars anymore.
Mm.
It was a family going together to play football or watch our kids play football, or my stepdad coach his sons play football, my mom watching her daughter cheerlead. Like that was something, it was at the time it wasn't a big deal, but looking back, that was a big deal because like, again, maybe that was the first time it wasn't about me, because like it's really awkward when you're at the dinner table and three-fifths of the table is talking about football, and 2/5 is just like, wow, soccer was great today, or like like the dynamic was so weird throughout the years. And I had more friends playing football. I had like maybe 4 or 5 playing soccer, and I only saw them when I was playing soccer. They lived different places, so I didn't run into them in school. It just made sense. And that was, at that time, that was the hardest thing I've ever done on purpose. Yeah.
Did you realize the bigger picture as to why you were doing what you were doing back then? Or did it just feel like you didn't want to miss out? Or did you realize all of this at that age? Because that's really deep, man. It is
Yeah.
like that. I was about to say that's the first time you realized it was bigger than you.
Yeah. Like this is prime middle child syndrome right here. Like this is that loneliness, that less than pure love that a middle child gets. I'm not saying that's true. My mom did an amazing job. It was a moment where again, I felt not a part of the family. And at the time, I would go to my dad's house in Florida. So I lived with my mom. My dad lives in Florida with my little brother. I would go to see him during the summer breaks and I'd come back. So I was back and forth. And then playing soccer. So like interaction with my brother and my little sister wasn't often, to say the least. I wasn't the best older brother to my little sister. Now it's different. But even with my brothers, with my brother, we could have, looking back, it could have been more.
Yeah.
I felt like, I'm not saying that sports is the reason, but I'm saying that I had so much going on. In that moment, I tried. It worked. I mean, like I was with my brothers and my brother, my sister, and my family more. But at the time, I was just very lonely,
Mm.
and I thought maybe making that transition would work. And I was with them more. Conversations were better. We would talk about football more. I got into football.
Mm.
I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan right now. I don't want to talk about it, but it was fun because the dynamic of the house changed. Like I grew up, my stepdad was a Cowboys fan. My little sister, she wasn't into football, but like right now she's one of the New York Jets cheerleaders.
What?
So yeah, she's one of the Jets cheerleaders, and she's still she's learning. She's a by default Jets fan. My mom, I don't know what she is. Yes. But that camaraderie around the sport kind of birthed. And like even though my stepdad was assistant coach, he owned his own semi-pro team, and I would go with them. And of course, my brother would come along, and we would watch those guys play football. Like I'm not saying we became a football house, but I think I felt we became a family more together at that moment. Yeah.
You know what's cool? I have a quote, but I'll save it. I'll get to it at some point. I'll get to it at some
Another
point.
one.
You know what? I think it's interesting, Les, because one thing you left out is you are newly married, recently a husband, which in my experience in almost 2 years now of marriage, that's something where being selfless is really challenging, but also really rewarding. And I've never felt so selfish in my life until I was married. I mean, I realized like, man, I spend 2.5 hours at the gym, and like before it didn't affect anybody else but me. And now it's like time away from my wife or whatever it is. And, I'm curious for you if you have kind of carried some of that selflessness with you into other aspects of your life, whether it's your work, your friendships, your marriage, if that's just become something that is a value of yours that you're very aware of.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. When it comes to my wife, shout out my wife, Alexis. Hope she's listening to this. But yes, um, she she tells me when I'm selfish. Sometimes it comes up, sometimes I wake up in the morning, I don't make her breakfast when I make myself breakfast. Sometimes I don't tell her when I'm going to the gym, and sometimes more than 2 hours. It happens, it comes up. But it's all conversation. It's all kind of, listening. I feel like I've become a very good listener. I feel like you can't lead unless you listen. And when it comes to my wife, we've made adjustments where we would kind of go to the gym together, or, when I wake up, I have my kind of routine. Now it's not as much because usually I would go out for a run, but now I'm kind of like doing whatever. I'm rehabbing.
Yeah.
I'm doing rehab stuff. But, those kind of things is all conversations. When it comes to my friends and my family, I always try to be there for them. I always let them know that I'm always a call away. Like I try to be very easy to talk to about anything serious, or about their relationships, or like if they need opinions, because they know like I'm pretty honest when it comes to every situation. Like I think our last meeting, one of the guys were talking about, how I'm like, my humor is brutally honest. Like that's my humor, and that's my truth. Like once upon a time, I was a compulsive liar. And again, that went back to that loneliness I felt, that I felt like I had to be someone else to be something in the eyes of my family and my friends at the time. And now that I feel more me, I guess, there's no reason to lie to not only myself, but to the people I love and I care about. And I know that the people I care about are so valuable in my life. to have people to support me and vice versa, it's definitely like one of those things you want to keep around, and you don't want to damage it with a lie,
Mm,
because it a lot of people say like, oh, it's a little lie. There's no little lies. There's lies. There's big lies. There's no big lies and no little lies. There's lies. There's dishonesty. There's disloyalty, and that's not me. I'm honest with everybody. I speak my mind, and I'm not sorry about it. I'm sorry, not sorry about it.
I,
Sure.
hey man, that's one of the many things I love and admire about you. And I pivoted here on my end of things. I was going to read one quote, but I'm going to go with a different one.
Oh boy.
I think oftentimes it's easy for me, and I would imagine a lot of other people, to get caught up in, I need to do this, I need to earn this much money, I need to have this title, I need to look a certain way on social media, when at the end of the day, relationships and impact are the two most important things that we can have, and those things live on, right? You talked
Mhm.
about children and grandchildren that you don't have yet but hopefully someday will. And there's this great quote by Thomas Campbell who said, to live in the hearts of those we leave behind is not to die. And
Mm.
I think it's so beautiful the way that you selflessly show up for the people that you care about, because not only is that going to create a ripple effect currently in this present time, but someday when those people touch people, when your kids are inspired and influenced by you and they go on to have children and generations, you're going to live on through them. And I think that eternal perspective, or that long-term perspective, is a great way to live life. And it kind of goes hand in hand with endurance, which, to be
Mhm.
honest, is my next question. And it's right. It's right. That was a great segue. I'm gonna give
That
myself
was great.
a pat on
That
the
was great.
back. Um, Les, when you think of the word endurance, what comes to mind? What does that mean to you?
The word endurance. I think the true definition is like enduring. Not. I feel like the true definition for everyone is so different.
Mm,
For me, endurance is, you know, finding that X year. I
mm,
feel that's endurance. So like, you could be depressed or feel depressed. Sorry, you can feel like you said you have that hurricane that happened in your life, that diagnosis, that loss of that family member or that friend or someone special to you. You can have a very low point in your life, and I feel when you're in that state, there's that X gear, that gear that only happens, that only pops up when you're at that state.
mm,
And there's two choices. You can either A, punch it, like really like balls to the wall, fast and furious next gear, or you could let the situation become you can let the situation make you into something you're not.
mm,
So once you find that X gear, I say push it, because there's no there's something worse, and that's not you.
mm,
And choose to let that situation make you something else, and that's not you. And that the worst thing you could do to yourself is not be yourself, for not only the people that support you and love you, but just like I said, for your legacy, the people that you're trying to change in the future, the people that you want to your wisdom and your philosophy touch.
mm.
So finding that X gear, and like I said, I found that gear many of times in my life, and I punched it every time. I
Mm.
punched it.
Man, I love the subtle violence with which you described endurance. I have another quote. You're gonna chuckle, but this one's from Elizabeth.
Three quotes in one podcast.
Dude,
Wow.
we might have 4 or 5 at this rate.
Oh.
I was actually writing a newsletter the other day that'll come out in a couple weeks. Actually, since we're a little bit ahead on the podcast, these might coincide, but it's by Elizabeth George. And she said, there always comes, I think, a sort of peak in suffering at which you either win over your pain or pain wins over you,
Mm,
according to whether you can or cannot call up that extra ounce of endurance that helps you break through the circle of yourself. And I was like, man, Les basically just said that in different words.
Solid. That was solid. Wow.
You know what, Elizabeth, if you're listening to this podcast, because I'm sure you are, reach out to my guy Les, because you guys have a lot in common with the way you
That was solid. That was a great find.
but yeah, man, I mean, I think it's like, it's this, and I had Richard Pogue is a previous podcast guest, and he talked about the moment of choice. And it's that moment like you were describing where you realize, okay, I could either rise to the best version of myself, or I
Mhm.
could fall to temptation or fall to the easiest possible path. And the more often that we can rise to that best version, that's who we become. And that's a
Mhm.
beautiful thing, but it's certainly not easy. So I guess for you, Les, like, how do you choose, like, how do you choose to endure in those moments? Like, is it the fact that life is bigger than you? Are you thinking about a specific person? Are you thinking about a specific thing? Like, what do you draw on deep down inside that actually allows you to do that?
Oh, that was a good question. What do I draw on? Oh, back then, it was the love and support of my friends and family.
Mm,
Now, it's the love and support of my friends and family and the future that I want for me and my wife.
mm,
All, all, all cards are on the table when it comes to me and my wife. Um, is she's my ride or die. She's my rock. Like she's the reason why I push every day. Yes, this part of the podcast is probably where my wife's gonna pause it and call me and say like, "Oh my God, you just said how much you love me on the podcast." But no, she's literally like everything to me. So when I come through these hardships nowadays, I think, what would Lex want me to do? What would my kids want me to do? What would, you know, a year from now when I look back at this, what I regret? And I think that's the worst thing. Regretting a decision is probably like that's the anchor of life. Like you don't want those anchors. You want to go full speed ahead and challenge and go through all these walls that life will present you because there's going to be hardships, there's going to be bumps in the road. But it's really about how you get over it, how you get through it. I feel like that's a Rocky quote. I think I just said it differently. I was as I was saying that, I feel like this is definitely a Sylvester Stallone quote. That's Rocky, one of those Rockies said. But yeah, I would say that.
You know what? We're going to pull it up right now because why not? I am in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is basically a city that is built around a fictional movie character. Every time I drive past the art museum steps, there are about 100 people lined up to take a picture with a statue of a fictional character.
Yep.
Um, Let me see. All right, I'm going to read it. It's a little bit lengthy, but we're here. So
Mm-hmm.
Rocky Balboa once said, "Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it.
Mm-hmm.
You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life, but it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about
Yep.
how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
That's it.
How much you can take and get what you're worth. But you got to be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you are because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that."
I'm reliving. I'm like watching the movie in my head.
You know what, Sylvester Stallone, if you're listening to this, come on the podcast. We'll get you on.
That'd be
Um,
solid.
yeah, so that was good. But Les, I
Mhm.
mean, in all seriousness, we've talked already a lot about kind of family and future, etc. And obviously, you're striving to leave behind a legacy, and you want to make a lasting impact on the world. And I think one of the coolest ways to do that is to have open and vulnerable and honest conversations that people can listen to and realize, like, hey, I'm not alone, or hey, this person's been through something similar, or maybe something totally different, but they've felt the same things that I'm feeling, and they're
Mhm.
on the other side. And so, what I want you to do is think of this last question as somebody listening to the podcast is asking you this, okay? They are going through a tough time, they're struggling with something, and they say, "Les, what guidance or advice do you have for me? So what would you say to somebody on the other end of this podcast who's going through a tough time and just needs a little bit of guidance?
Oh man. Wow, that's a great question. So your quote, man, I actually have my own quote. This is a Leslie Kleiber quote.
That's a quote within itself. I actually have my own quote.
I have a quote. It's not trademarked. I don't know how you trademark a quote, but it's not. I Googled it. There's no one else that said it.
Actually, Les, fun fact, and for anybody listening, I've done a lot of research since starting Project Endure on
Of
trademarks.
course. Are you kidding me?
Anytime if you say something original, it automatically has common law trademark. So this is trademarked to you, Les. All right. So say it out loud, trademark.
100% of the time, the best day to start something new was yesterday. And what I mean by that is that really attacks the mentality of doubt. I feel doubt is such a dangerous thing to feel. It's a dangerous thing to carry on your back and let it weigh you down. A lot of people are scared to do things that are new. Either it be a new position at work, either it be, dating someone that you never dated in the past, or starting running, start working out in general. There's a lot of doubt. There's a lot of, fake news on Google saying, X amount of injuries are caused from this injury for a certain amount of time. If you do this sport like CrossFit or like whatever, all that stuff is there. Some of it is true. Some of it is scientific fact, but you never know until you do it. All this doubt that you're putting in front of you, all this concern over X, Y, and Z from, this person, my best friend said this, my cousin from a second mother said I shouldn't do that, I shouldn't buy these shoes. Just try. It's not, people, I feel like this is like a solid truth. People are scared to fail.
Yeah.
When failing is such an important part of life, you don't learn. Most of the time, you don't learn until you fail. So, like, if you fail at something, you fail at a project at high school or a project at school, fail at a job, fail at workouts. If you fail, you've learned how to fail. You've learned how to not do something correctly when it comes to that. So next time when you do it, you know exactly what not to do. You have a 1+ start on everybody because they don't know, but you know what not to do. If you try, if you get rid of that doubt, 100% of the time, the best day to start was yesterday when you were doubting yourself, when you started putting this doubt in front of you and putting it. I don't know how to finish it, but like doubt. That's doubt, being scared to fail. I feel like those are the two biggest things.
Maybe we'll let Dale Carnegie finish this one off with another quote.
Oh boy, another quote.
Right.
Here we go.
Inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit home and think about it. Go out and get busy. Now, while that doesn't perfectly finish and round out your thought, I think, what you're saying resonates with me so deeply, and I'm sure with so many listeners, because, at the end of the day, I think failure is an interesting word. Most people think of failure as a negative thing, but I think ultimate failure is when you give up on something that is truly meaningful to you. I think everything else is a learning opportunity, and we call it failure, right? And one of my favorite sayings is make new mistakes. When you make a mistake, you get to learn, you get to adjust, you get to grow. Try not to make that mistake again. Go out and make a different one. Learn, grow, adjust, adapt, move forward. And the people who have the most wisdom, the people who you want to say, quote unquote, are the most successful are the ones who have failed the most times, and they've learned from those failures. So, I mean, I'm with you, Les. I love it. I love it, man.
Trademark.
Leslie Kleiber.
There we go.
Hey, Les, I got one more quote, and I want to get your thoughts on this one, actually, and then we'll kind of close.
5 quotes. So Jesus.
This might be 6. We might have to go back and count. All right. So this one is Veronica Roth, and she said, "There are so many ways to be brave in this world. Sometimes bravery involves laying down your life for something greater than yourself or for someone else. Sometimes it involves giving up everything you've ever known or everyone you've ever loved for the sake of something greater. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it is nothing more than gritting your teeth through pain and the work of every day, the slow walk toward a better life." And I'm curious what your take on that quote is in the context of your story. Just being that bravery doesn't have to be this grand, big gesture, but that sometimes bravery is simply getting up in the morning when you don't feel like it and putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, that was a solid quote. I feel like that quote really crystallized the concept of people maximizing everything in front of them. Where, like, for example, Elon Musk did not create Tesla overnight. There was failures, there were achievements, there were a lot of little things, little stuff that build up. There were building blocks of success and failures that got, for example, Elon Musk to where he is today, the richest man in the world. But even regardless of that, even when it comes to anything in life, people tend to think too big, too fast, and we're taking time to accomplish the little feats, the building blocks to get to where you need to be. I feel like that's the biggest thing. And the journey is also part of it. Learning new things, learning new aspirations, new ambitions out of it. Every journey is an opportunity, I feel. So that's what I feel.
Little by little, little becomes a lot. And the process is always more important than the product.
I like that. That was technically another quote.
Mic drop. So Les, listen, I think that anybody listening to this podcast should go and follow you for a laugh, for some inspiration, and just for some, for a good person in their life. Where can people find you if they want to follow along and connect?
So I'm mostly on Instagram and TikTok right now. On Instagram, my name is Less Body Fat, no caps, no spaces. On TikTok, I believe, yeah, it is the same thing. Yeah, Less Body Fat on TikTok as well. Like Joe said, most of my recent content has been gym humor. I feel like that's a really good niche that I'm in right now. I haven't been posting as of late. I'm gonna get back on that this weekend because I have some free time. I've been really busy with work, but yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm really quick with responding with DMs. I don't know if Joe's has ever said this, but he's pretty quick with his responses too. Until 8 p.m. That's his bedtime.
Les and I, there are people who I'll message and get a response back 6 months later. Les is just like me. So our interactions are like a pinball, just bang, 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 right back and forth.
Literally, yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty quick with responses, and yeah, like Joe, great people like Joe. I'm really easy to talk to. You can talk to anything with me, and yeah, that's where I'm at if you want to connect.
Awesome, man. Well, I will link those things in the description so people can follow along. And Les, thank you so much for this. This is part 1, of course, because we're going to have part 2 at some point in the future. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.